is your boy AT from AT's Barstool, and today we are back with another video. This will be episode 3, yes, episode 3 of AT's podcast. If you guys are new to this channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and if you want to see more Delaware basketball content, just let me know. And we are going to be doing a recap of this week's games, part 2. Today, we're going to start off with the first game with the Salesian Sows versus the Sanford Warriors. But in that game against Sanford, Sally's had a really good game where they beat them 45-41, improving their record to 4-10. And Sally's, they have not been the best, but they have been competing with a lot of really good teams this year. And they know that coming into the season, as their strength of schedule is ridiculous. The in-state, and not only the in-state, but the out-of-state schedule is also ridiculous. So it makes it 10 times harder for them to, win games and play back-to-back really good teams. And I know that will be a struggle. And in that game against Sanford, Latrell had 16 points, and RJ Robbie Johnson had 9 points in only one half, despite missing the whole first half. But in that game, Sally's was really well, and in that game, Sanford was really bad, as they shot terrible, and Sanford was the number 1 team going into that game. And not only that, I honestly made a video, not make a video, but I did give my opinion on what is Sanford going to do against Sally's, and why Jaden is the best player. And in that game, I was, well, not in that game, but in that video, I was just totally wrong. And not only was I totally wrong, but Sanford actually went on to lose in OT. Yes, it was in overtime. Sally's was up for most of the game. I think the largest lead they had was like 5 points, close to like 10 probably. But they was, they just came in hot, did really well, played some really good defense, which, a lot of Sanford players was missing shots. And I did watch some of that game, and it was just not a good game for Sanford. And if you're wondering, where is my mic at? My mic is not here because my mic is dead. So, yes, if it's hard to hear, just know my mic is dead, and I can't use it right now. So, right now, I'm just talking straight raw. But the next game we are going to be talking about is Dickinson versus McCain, a rivalry matchup. It was a good matchup, and for the 3rd year in a row, Dickinson ended up beating McCain with a final score of 74-68. Well, it was really 76-64. The website or whatever it says 64, not 64, 68-74. I don't know what they doing with the scoreboard. It was really 76-64 at the end of the game. In that game, Zamir had a great game where he had 26 points and had a total of 3 steals. On the other hand, 3 other players was in double digits for Dickinson, such as Jair Wright, CJ Hollins, and Kenyon Chase, who actually went on to have a double-double with 14 points and 10 assists, having one of his best games of the year. In that game, he also did have 8 assists, and I think he was definitely, despite, the 26-point performance or 27-point performance by Zamir Crawford, Kenyon Chase definitely had the better game with, 14 points. Also, Jair Wright did have a really good game where he had 14 points, didn't really have the best rebounding game, but he did have 14 points and contribute big time on defense. And also in that game, CJ Hollins, he went on to have 12 points and 3 steals himself. And McCain, they just turned the ball over a lot. And Dickinson started that game off really hot. And McCain started competing with them in the second quarter, where Brandon Rogers had 29 points, not in the second quarter, but in that whole entire game. And Lennar Anderson had 18, such as Abdul, who also had 18. Only 4 players from McCain that scored the ball that whole game, and it was just not really good, as Ricardo shot horrible, and the rest of the McCain team just played bad, honestly. They just couldn't stop the Rams from beating them. We're here to talk about why McCain lost and why Dickinson just beat the pants off of them, which they did all game, tired them out, as they was going coast to coast with, a bunch of their layups, but they couldn't beat Dickinson, and a bunch of turnovers really just killed their chance. Not only that, that is the first time in a while, I think the first time in like 4 years or something like that, since we beat McCain at their place. So it was a really good feeling being, a rival down at McCain. Anyways, that is it for that game. And also, we are going to go back to Sally's, which we are going to go back to Thursday's game. Was it Thursday's game? No, it was Tuesday's game. My bad. It was a Tuesday game, Salesianum Sal's versus the Howard Wildcats. In that game, the Wildcats beat them 59-52. It was a really good game, and, Sally started off well. They started off 13-8 in the first quarter, and then Howard came back, scored 16 in the second, and they just ran away from there. Main guys on Howard, it was just an all-around scoring clinic, as usual for the Howard Wildcats. This team has a bunch of juniors, really good junior class, couple seniors, but the junior class is one of the scariest ones in the state of Delaware as of right now. If you don't know, they have Nick Bayshaw, and they also have Bryson Lane, who are both juniors, and they also have Caden Brown and Ronald Handy, who have been really good. Howard, they're just a really good team. They played really well, passed the ball around, shoot, score, all that stuff. In that game, Caden Brown had 14 points, leading all scores on Howard, while Ronald Handy had 10 points and 7 boards. Yes, 10 points and 7 boards, which was a really good game for him. And also, Nick Bayshaw had 11 points and had a really good game too as their main point guard. Despite Bryson not playing that well, they still played really well, and the all-around scoring was great as they took the dub and took care of business at Howard. In that game too, Sally's leading scorers was Robbie Johnson, who had 17 points, and he had a couple good buckets, but it was not enough to beat the Howard Wildcats. And in that game, Latrell had 11 points, not his usual 15, 20-point performances that he's been having the last couple of, weeks or whatever since they stopped playing against the out-of-state schools. And also, freshman Kai, I don't know how to say his last name, but he had also a pretty good game himself, scoring 9 points. And also, this freshman, he's been getting a couple of starts, and he will definitely be the future of Sally's. As this freshman Kai, he's going to play well, and he's going to do his thing, get boards, do all the big man stuff, and also score the ball a little bit. And we might see that from the future for Sally's. And I highly think that he will be, if not one of the best players in the state of Delaware, top 10 or top 15 in the next 2-3 years from now, if I'm being honest with you. But overall, about that game, the Salesian Sal's, they started off high, came in second quarter, with confidence, feeling like they're going to beat them and just destroy them. Howard ended up scoring 16 in the second, which we already said. And the most points that was scored in a quarter that whole game was 20 points, and it was from none other than Howard, which they outscored Sally's with a score of 14-20, which, that ended up being a 59-52 loss for Sally's. Sally's goes on to be 4-11, having a losing season officially, regardless of how many wins they get the next couple of weeks or whatever. But Sally's playoff chances are still alive despite the 4-11 record. I think it's 5 now with the win against St. Mark's. But yeah, and we are also going to talk about that game soon. But they had a really, really bad, they're not having a really, well, it is kind of a bad season. But let's be honest, Sally's is definitely the best 4-11 team, and we could all agree on that. And the Howard Wildcats, they just didn't have nothing for it when they did have something for them. But overall, Sally's just got to improve, and they just got to play as a team. That's all I got to say. That game was live streamed. I watched that game. It was, it was not that, it was I guess. They was trading buckets in the fourth, and then Howard just ran away with it pretty much. And that's just how that game went. And yeah. Now, The next game I do want to talk about. We are going to talk about Wednesday's game, the John Dickinson High School. Once again, we're going to flip back to Dickinson. The game was at Dickinson. They was playing against Concord High School. Not really that many good games on Wednesday, but there was, one game where we could talk about Dickinson again. Also, in that game, not also, but in that game against Concord, Dickinson went on to beat them in a blowout victory, getting their revenge from last year, which, if you guys don't know what happened last year, Dickinson lost to Concord by 62-61 at Concord High School, where in that game they lost in overtime to free throws, and due to the fact that that game right there pretty much sealed Dickinson's season, which ended up making Dickinson miss the playoffs. And this year, it was different. It was really different. Dickinson went on to not only beat Concord, but blow them out and get their revenge. But then again, Concord did lose a bunch of seniors from last year, even though them seniors wasn't really the best, despite Ashad. But outside of him last year, they didn't really have nobody special. And this year, they're just young, really young. A bunch of guys who played on JV the previous year, which they had guys such as Sean Norwell and who else? Sean Miner, and they also had Michael Wright. They had some of those guys, and in that game, Sean Norwell from Concord had 13 points and 8 boards, where he knocked down 3 threes. The big man, he was knocking down threes. I was really surprised when I was playing that game and watching it. And Michael Wright, the number 2 on Concord, he had 12 points and 6 boards, including a buzzer beater 3 from half court, where it was just crazy. He went in. In that game, Dickinson did start off pretty slow, but then they started off, eating away, scoring 16 points in the first quarter, where it was 16-7. And Concord, they're just not, they wasn't good. They did get a lot of rebounds, got a lot of second chance points. Then second quarter, Concord went on a little run where they ended up tying the game up at one point, and that's when they started knocking down threes, hustling for rebounds. And this Concord team, they do have potential. They may not be the best right now, which I think they're 3-12 as we're speaking as of right now. But this Concord team, they could be something, because I'm telling you, they have a bunch of young guys, and they're not bad either. They're getting a good amount of PT, and yeah, that's all I got to say about Concord. But Dickinson, they had another great game as they moved on to 13-2, which tied the amount of wins they had last season, which, if you guys don't know, Dickinson actually went on to go 13-7, where they missed the playoffs due to a tiebreaker with McCain and Glasgow, and a couple other teams, I think, such as Cape. And yeah, but in that game, it was a really good game for them. Fourth quarter, Concord did get out. Yeah, okay, my bad. Concord definitely but it was 26-9 in the fourth quarter. And it was just a really bad fourth quarter for Concord because, honestly, I don't know. It's just Concord, man. Dickinson, they played well, played as an overall team. And it was overall scoring, too. That was the game, my bad. That was the game, It was really good overall scoring from Dickinson. Jair Wright led the way with 16 points, 14 rebounds, and a total of 6 steals in that game, which is the most he's had all season. And C.J. Hollins having another really good game where he put up 14 points and 3 steals. And Zamir Crawford, who had 14 points. Yeah, he had 14 points, 9 assists, and 7 steals, despite not having this usual 20-point game, which I think this is the first time this season he's had a game under 15 points, which is pretty surprising. But yeah, he was 1 point off from that streak not snapping, but sadly he couldn't do it. And in that game, Isaiah Armour, in his 3rd game back, yes, his 3rd game back here, but he was ineligible. And this year, he is back as the DIAA, improved of him being back. And not only that, in his 3rd game back at Dickinson, he went on to have 12 points, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. He had a really good game. and just just an overall solid game from him, from the big man, as the Twin Towers are officially back at Dickinson. Also, the next game I do want to talk about is Friday's game. There were two games, but I'm going to talk about the early one. We are going to stay on the topic with Dickinson, and that is Dickinson versus Aspera Academy, which was yesterday. In that game, Dickinson blew them out 76-56. Once again, I don't think there was really no good games outside from Dickinson, Aspera, and St. Mark's and Sally's. There was a couple solid games today, but we will probably get to those next video. But in them games, St. Mark's, not St. Mark's, my bad, Aspera, they had a really good first quarter. They started that game off with 2 technical free throws, which really helped them out a lot. And in that game, they was scoring the ball really well, where they was actually at one point tied 18-18 with Dickinson, despite Aspera not being good with their 2-13 record. They was getting up there with Dickinson, and they had a solid game up until pretty much the second quarter, where they played absolutely horrible. Yes, you heard me right. They played absolutely horrible. And I know Aspera is not the best team, and they play some terrible comp, but it is the second quarter that they had, man, it was just horrible. Like, when I tell you it was horrible, it was horrible. Like, I mean, it was bad. And Dickinson, they just, went on a roll second quarter. They went on to score 50 points. Yes, the score was 24-50 at halftime, which is actually the most points Dickinson has put up in a first half, yes, of this year. 50 points total. It was a great game for Dickinson, and it was just a really bad game for Aspera, because Aspera's Aspera. And not only that, Aspera, they didn't, it's their third year as a program. I mean, I was expecting them to do, a little bit better, get some solid transfers in like they did last year with Zaire Gibson, who now transferred out and is back at William Penn. But in them games, well, not in them games, but in that game against Dickinson, but Aspera went on to, they played well the first quarter, and then just played absolutely horrible the next 3. And I do not want to talk about how it performed, but in that game, though, overall, Dickinson had a good one, as Amir Crawford had 24 points and 10 steals, having a double-double with points and steals. Really impressive game from him. Jair Wright went on to have 23 points and 5 steals, and that game was so bad where it was a running clock. And you guys must be wondering, oh, why am I talking about it? Well, it had to be talked about, and it was just crazy, honestly. I mean, it's crazy, but also not crazy then again. And also, some people suggested it too on my Instagram. If you guys do want to follow me on Instagram, it is at AT's Barstool. It will be linked in the bio. So when y'all get a chance to click the link, go click the link and follow, and I will really appreciate it, for real, because I am trying to get to at least 100 followers by the end of February. Now, in that game too, it was Dickinson actually went on to have 32 points in the second quarter. Don't forget, 32 points. It was 18-18, and it went on to be 32 points. Not 32, but Dickinson outscored Aspera 32-8, and it was really bad. It was really bad, and Dickinson just went on to score 19 in the third quarter, and then they only scored a total of 6 points, where it was just straight up running clock, and it felt like we didn't really have much time. But it didn't matter. Dickinson went on to go 14-2. They officially, yes, and I mean officially, they have a better record than they had last year, and they look a lot better too. And also, another thing I do want to note too is Amir Crawford from the John Dixon High School, the senior guard. He is actually on pace to score 1,000 points, where he is currently 13 points away from scoring 1,000 in the next game. The real question is, will he hit 1,000 points in that game against Christiana? The world will never know. So we'll see how Zamir and this Dickinson team does on Monday. And they actually have back-to-back, so Monday and Tuesday, they play Christiana in Glasgow. And other than that, Zamir is really doing well. In the 5 years he's played in at Dickinson. He's been amazing, been on varsity since 8th grade, and now about to hit 1,000 points, and about to be the fourth. Yes, you heard me right. The fourth player in Dickinson history to score 1,000 points, and I think the third men's basketball player to score 1,000 at Dickinson. So that is really impressive, and that would be a really great achievement if he could do that on Monday. And he just played a really good game, and he's just been good all season. In the last 5 years, he's been amazing. So congrats on him on being on pace to having 1,000. And if this video is for some reason not dropped, I don't know why it wouldn't be, then congrats on having 1,000 now. But that is really it about Dickinson, and we are actually going to go back to Sally's. Yes, I know, it's going Dickinson Sally's, and then other teams mixed in it too. I know, it's crazy. The other game I want to recap after that Spirit game, I did go on to watch the Sally's and St. Mark's game myself. Sally's took down St. Mark's. Yes, they took down St. Mark's, beating them for the second, third? Nah, that's the fourth. I think that is the fourth year in a row. Yes, the fourth year in a row. And the more the thing, and this is probably the most impressive rivalry win out of the 4 years I have heard about, Sally's taking out St. Mark's. And the reason being is, it's due to the fact that Latrell Wright did not play at all. Yes, when I tell you he did not play at all, he did not play at all in that game against St. Mark's. He sat on the bench. I don't know what he did or what happened. He looked like he was fully healthy. He was in his warm-up suit or whatever, but he just straight up didn't play. And in that game, Robbie Johnson had 23 points and Kevin Coleman had 21, as they both played really well. And once again, the freshman Kai, he had a couple boards and a couple crucial defensive stops as Dickinson won that game. In that game, Dickinson did have about 40. It was 40-30 at halftime, and honestly, I was a little bit nervous. I was, but wasn't, that, Sally's was going to kill their lead, which they have done multiple times. There's been games where Sally's been up by a lot, not by a lot, but up 10 to 15 points, and they just completely blow it. Or they'll just be staying in there with the team or whatever, and they'll just absolutely get destroyed. But then again, you got to realize they have a really good schedule, and Sally's, that win right there, that's their, fifth win of the season? And that win probably was the more impressive one, because due to the fact that, Latrell was out for that game, and it was just straight up a RJ and Kevin show all night. And for St. Mark's, Khalil played a really good game. I don't know how much he had realistically. He probably had 15, 20. He had a good game, and freshman Dylan made a couple of big threes to cut their lead down. And he did get in foul trouble, so he was getting taken out and all that, and just getting put in for offense, where he had 4 fouls. And St. Mark's just didn't play a good overall game, honestly. They turned the ball over a lot, missed some shots, and also got out-rebounded badly. And another thing they did wrong, and that was game plan for Robbie. Yes, RJ Johnson. I don't think they game planned right, as Robbie Johnson stayed out of foul trouble, which was probably the best, or probably not the best, but that is probably the first time in a while have I seen RJ not be in foul trouble, especially with my own 2 eyes, because it feels like every game he's in foul trouble. But no disrespect to him, he did play a really good game though, and overall he was just outstanding, especially from the 3-point line. I think he knocked down at least 2-3 3-pointers in that game, and had a couple tough buckets to help Sally's win, as he just full on took over. And same thing with Kevin Coleman and Dom Downs. For St. Mark's, St. Mark's had a solid game. We already talked about it. But Khalil Kemp, he had a solid game too. He did end up getting hurt. And yeah, he got hurt not once but twice. I think he messed up his shoulder or whatever. But he was knocking him down today, and not today, but on Friday when I went to the game. And he looked really good. And congrats on him for scoring 1,000 points, which I think he hit last game against AI. But yeah, congrats on his 1,000 points too. He's been really good for St. Mark's since he's transferred. And he's definitely going to be a key player to look out for come playoff time. Especially due to the fact that he's playing through an injury against Sally's and still put up a good 15, 20 points. Yeah, he will definitely be one of the few guys that's going to be really dangerous come playoff time. Now, the next team, also give a recap on the William Penn Colonials and the Howard Wildcats. This game was earlier today, and I usually don't do recaps from the day I do videos, but this game right here, man, when I tell you, I would never thought, I would have never, never thought this game would have started off like this. In this game against Howard, William Penn put up 17. It's not even the fact they put up 17. It was the way it started. 17-3 in the first quarter. In the first, this is something you will see from like a Sanford versus Tower Hill game or something. 17-3 in the first quarter, Sanford Tower Hill game. You will see something like that probably from those type of games. But not a good, really good game, which it was today, against two really good schools that not only are they public, but they are two of the best public, as Flight A, one of the best teams in Flight A, taking on one of the best teams in Flight B. It was a really good mix-up matchup for conference matchup, mix-up matchup conference, whatever it's called. But other than that, they was getting slapped. I mean, it was bad in that first quarter. And I think that first quarter really set the tone for William Penn to win that game 62-57. In that game, Andy Webb had 16 points and 3 blocks, had a really good game for him. And they had no Zaire Gibson too, which is even more crazier. Also, Elijah Coates went on to have 15 points and 7 assists and was named the player of the game, as he had a really good game and one of his best games of the season for sure. And also, Birdie did end up having 9 points and about 13 boards. My bad, not 9, 7 points and 13 boards. But he still played a really good game, and William Penn went on to win that game. For Howard, Nick was solid and Bryson was solid. But man, when I tell you that first quarter really messed them up, it really did. They did make a really good effort in coming back as they went on to score 15. They ended up with 15 points and then 35, so they went on to have 20 between them two corners. And in the fourth, it was just, they scored points, made a really good effort, but William Penn, they could not just stop them. Honestly, it was just a really good game for William Penn. That's all I gotta say. And Howard was just not really in the right position. And I definitely think that now, since the whole week's over, I definitely do think that Howard may drop due to this game. They did beat Sally's, but they lost to Penn. And Penn they're good, but let's be honest. They lost to a team with 3 freshmen. Not only that, Penn is about 9-6 now, have 6 losses. They are above 500, but I definitely do see Howard getting knocked down in the rankings. Do I see Sanford getting knocked down? No, not really. I don't see Sanford at all. Sanford stays at 1. And if you guys want to know my opinion on the situation, on the rankings or whatever for this week, I definitely think that top 5 teams, in my opinion, will be Sanford number 1 with, Sanford. And yeah, they lost to Sally's, but I think they'll still be number 1 at the end of the day. And number 2, St. Elizabeth, as usual. And number 3, I definitely think it's going to be Dover. Yes, I think Dover's going to stay at 3. And then probably Howard dropped to number 5. So who would be number 4? Number 4, I don't know. I honestly think it should be St. George's, though. They're probably going to say, oh, William Penn should be 4 because they took down Howard, whatever. Yeah, that's cool, whatever. But I honestly think, in my honest opinion, in my rankings, I think St. George's should be number 4. They've been really good, and they just been balling out. And not only that, they had a really good quality win against Apple where they took them down 53-50, and Emory had a really good game. But with that being said, y'all, thank you guys for enjoying this video. And with that being said, I'll be out. Also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the video. And make sure to leave a like on this video too, if I didn't say that already. And also, link in my bio to go follow me on Instagram at AT's Barstool. It will be right in my bottle down in the description. But with that being said, y'all, thank you guys for watching the recap of this week's games from Delaware High School basketball. Actually, if not some of the games from Delaware High School basketball. And with that being said, I'll see y'all next week. Peace.